George Carlin said it best. The reason they call it the American dream is because you have to be asleep to believe in it. Are you old enough to remember George Carlin? One of my all-time favorite comedians. Actually, I don't like calling him a comedian. It's more honest to call him a social commentator who gave irreverent and unapologetically honest social commentary. And wow, if he were alive today, he'd be cackling because the so-called American dream is definitely looking more like the American delusion. Once upon a time, the dream was simple. Work hard, buy a house with a white picket fence, raise 2.5 kids, grill burgers in the backyard, and retire without selling a kidney to pay for your medication. But somewhere along the way, reality kicked in. The house is now foreclosed. The burgers cost $18 at a restaurant, and the only thing multiplying is your credit card debt. And here's the kicker. Fewer people than ever are buying into the myth about the American dream. That's right. Hardly anyone believes in the American dream any longer. Let's check the numbers. You know the numbers don't lie, but they might make you cry. In June 2024, an ABC News poll found that only 27% of Americans believe the dream is still true. 27%. That's barely a quarter of the population. You know what else is around 25%? The tip you should probably leave on that $9 latte because the barista has 3 side hustles just to pay rent. So let's go way back to 2010. At that time, half of all the Americans, 50%, still believed in the dream. Fast forward to now, and it's been cut almost in half. At this rate, by 2035, the only people left believing in it will be motivational speakers and real estate agents. Yeah, in early September 2025, the Wall Street Journal and NORC at the University of Chicago dropped a poll showing that belief today in the American dream is at a 15-year low. 15 years. That means people are more pessimistic now than they were during the Great Recession of 2008. That's when the housing market imploded and banks were basically robbing people with paperwork. A 2025 CNN poll shows that about half of those under 30 believe hard work is not a guarantee of success today. Imagine being told your whole life to grind, hustle, and just work hard, only to find out you're only one paycheck away from moving back into your parents' basement. So why is the dream dying? Well, it's not rocket science. Here's the short version. Wages have been flatter than a pancake. Housing prices are higher than a stone giraffe. Healthcare costs could bankrupt a billionaire. Well, not really, but you get the idea, right? Student loans? Don't even get me started. People are graduating with more debt than some small countries. The dream was built on the idea that hard work equals stability. But in 2025, hard work often equals burnout, anxiety, and maybe, if you're lucky, a pizza night once a month. And the younger you are, the more obvious this feels. Millennials and Gen Z are looking around thinking, wait a minute, my grandparents bought a house on one salary. My parents sent me to college. And me, I can barely afford eggs. No wonder the dream is circling the drain. Here's a fun little detail. Pessimism about the dream isn't spread evenly. According to recent polling, skepticism is sharper among younger adults and Democrats and liberal-leaning folks. And why wouldn't that be? If you're more progressive, you probably actually notice that income inequality is worse than ever. You're the one pointing out that Jeff Bezos is launching himself into space while you're trying to figure out how to afford dental care. Meanwhile, some conservatives still cling to the dream like it's a security blanket, insisting that if you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, never mind that you can't afford boots, you too can make it. The great myth of hard work has been drilled into us for far too long. Yeah, this is the elephant in the room. Hard work does not guarantee success anymore. Maybe it never did, I don't know. But at least it used to get you closer. Today, working hard often just guarantees, well, more work. You can put in 60 hours a week and still not cover rent in many cities. You can save diligently and still watch your savings evaporate because one trip to the ER costs more than your car. You can get that degree your parents said would change your life, only to realize you're qualified for jobs that pay less than a Starbucks barista gets, and she gets free coffee. Young people aren't lazy. They're just not dumb. They see that it just doesn't all add up. And when the math doesn't add up, neither does the dream. So then, the $1,000,000, or maybe the $1,000,000,000,000 question is, what replaces the dream? Well, for a lot of younger people, the new dream looks different. It's not about the house with the fence. It's about flexibility, working remotely from Bali or Lisbon instead of commuting 3 hours a day. Experiences over things, travel, hobbies, friendships, things that actually make life feel good instead of just hoarding stuff you don't have time to use. Community, finding support networks outside of the nuclear family model. Balance, refusing to worship at the altar of the hustle and grind. Basically, it's less live to work and more worked just enough to live. The American dream used to be the country's greatest marketing campaign. It was the slogan, "Come here, work hard, and you'll make it." But like most buzzwords, it was too good to be true. Most of the time. Now, people are realizing they bought snake oil with a side of credit card debt. So yeah, George Carlin was right. The American dream really does require you to be asleep. But in 2025, more and more people are wide awake. The truth? The dream isn't dead. It's evolved. The younger generation, they're not buying the fantasy anymore. They're building something new, smaller, scrappier, and maybe a whole lot more honest. And honestly, good for them. Maybe it's time we stop selling people a fairy tale and start dealing with reality. Because the American dream, as many of us knew it back in the day when it was really possible, well, now it's more like a fever dream anyway. And now people have finally stopped hitting the snooze button. So here's to the dreamers who are wide awake, the ones redefining success on their own terms, and the ones brave enough to say, thanks, but no thanks, to a system that was rigged from the start. The old dream might be dead, but at least what's replacing it is real. And if I look back at my life, I see that I was way ahead of my time. I was going through that kind of stuff and looking for something different. And what did I end up doing? I ended up moving to Indonesia. Yeah, teaching English here, working as a tour director, and now making YouTube videos, working online from home. So if that's not worth celebrating, I don't know what is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go calculate how many gig economy jobs it'll take my brother to afford therapy to deal with all of this. So, thanks for listening to me and watching. I hope you got a kick out of it. And please share it with friends who might need to hear about it too. Thanks for now. See you next time. Bye.